Hello, guys. It's National Master Kevin Yang here with a fourth um, game to show you. And, well, this was round five of the tournament, right? And, um, yeah, so I'm pretty sure I showed you Alton, showed you Peyton, and actually, this is the third game. So, this was Sabrina Shanker, and she was white and I was black, so let's get on with the game. My opponent played 1c4, and okay, I didn't know what to do at the time because most people played the move e4, just king's pawn up. So I kind of didn't know what to do, but I played normally, so I just continued pushing that pawn. Knight up, knight up, knight up, knight up. Okay, so yes, both sides are developing, and knights before bishops. This is kind of interesting. The four knights defense. And then my opponent plays this e3 move. Now, she wants to control the center with d4, and later, after d4, maybe open her bishop up this way. So that's her goal. Um, so I played d6 in the game, but realize how it really shuts down this bishop, right, in terms of activity. So usually when we develop, we want them to be active. We want them to control something. We want them to look for something. So here I think a better move would have been bishop b4, maybe keeping the pressure on this knight in order to be able to play this pawn break of d5 one day. But okay, so I played d6. My opponent played d4, as usual. Take, take. Now, I think I don't really have to take here, because now that I take, I allow her bishop to come out, right? And I think that was unnecessary on my part. So I think a better move would have been just bishop e7. And even if she forced my knight back, I would reroute my knight a6, c5, or d7, c5. Both would be fine. So, okay. But instead I took, at my 800 rating self, takes, and got my bishop out. Good. I'm still following development. And now um, my goal is I want to take this guy. So, for example, my opponent could play a3, threatening to advance the pawn of some sort, but I could take. And after queen takes, the knight takes on d4. So in this case, my opponent would have to take by pawn. But she did well. She prevented my threat by playing bishop up. So that way, after bishop takes, she takes back with the bishop, and she has a better position. So I didn't. So what I did was I developed the bishop out. Both sides castled, symmetrical, getting pressure down the lone half-open file. And my opponent plays bishop out. Now, I'm not sure if I saw this because I don't remember that long ago, but I could have played bishop takes, knight takes pawn. She takes this b7 pawn, and I come out with rook b8. And then, let's say this happens, and then maybe I could play this, but that would lead to this bishop here. So, yeah, I think c6 would have been okay too. So, okay, that was another continuation. But I thought d5 was pretty natural, taking another square in the center, getting this guy too. So my opponent took, knight takes, queen takes. Okay, so now we get into more of a middle game-ish, right? So my plan's pretty straightforward. I want to get my rook out here, I want to put pressure on this isolated pawn. So if you guys don't know what an isolated pawn is, the isolated pawn isn't really protected by any defenders here. So that was my main goal. And so, with this isolated pawn, my opponent does correctly defend it. Now I put more pressure on it, and this b3 move. Now that I'm looking at it, it looks kind of strange because, first of all, it doesn't do much other than the fact that you want to get the bishop out. But even there, I could play maybe bishop takes f3 as a threat. So, even at my 800-year-old self, I did play queen d6 and backup to prevent this bishop out. So my opponent played rook c1. And I was like, okay, so wants to create these open files, maybe get the rook out here. So I played a6. Now, it might look interesting that you might not know what I'm defending against, but I think my prediction was I didn't want him to go bishop here, because I thought that was annoying, get rid of the knight, and then have this really strong rook out there. I think I didn't want that, so I played a6. My opponent advances the pawn correctly. I play knight here. My opponent gets very aggressive with this bishop move. I go back, and she pushes. Okay, so I take, bishop takes, and now I get a better position with this move. Bishop takes f3. Now the key behind this is that if she takes with the bishop, I can take with the knight. And if queen takes knight, queen takes bishop, because the queen was originally guarding this bishop. But if pawn takes, I can take the rook, queen takes, and queen takes bishop. So either way, we called this an overload in defense. So in this case, white's best option would probably to be taking with the pawn to retain both of these pieces still. But, at the 1000 level, we don't see all things yet. So then my opponent does play bishop takes e5, which ultimately is one of the losing continuations. And you'll see. So I play bishop takes e2. My opponent trades queens. I do trade queens as well. Rook takes and rook takes. And now I'm up this extra bishop. So even if she plays bishop takes, I could take back and I'd still be up a bishop. So in this case, she's given me a better version of it. So now she comes here wanting to double up and maybe pressure the back rank. I get free of it. She gets free of it too. Now I go here to protect the rook. And she still trades. I respect that. And now this was a little bit of an error in trading because it gave her some room, and especially because she found this move. Now she's attacking both pawns and maybe, some chances. But I do a good job in eliminating those chances. So I come here to attack the weak backwards pawn. My opponent advances, and now I pressure this backwards pawn. She continues to advance, I pressure that one. And now a5, and I'm thinking, okay, perfect. Central square, puts an attack on this f2 weak pawn, gets the rook in, and secures this b6 square. And she thought, okay, maybe I might be able to use this guy as a deflector, right? So she played rook check. But the timing was off on her calculation. Take, rook e2. Now the simple way to do it is here, 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 and I'll be guarding the back. But I did it a little bit more fancy. Played here, b7, and rook e8. Now I'm controlling this promotion square once again. This, this. And now it's important to cut off the king from the promotion pawn. And so I start marching my king toward the weak pawns. h3, h5, king g5, a4, rook b3. And I notice, okay, once she comes here, now play here. Because now if she comes for it, I can go down. She can't come down anymore because this rook is bothering her. So I keep pushing, queen, check, check, and I set up this mating pattern. This check, check, and mate. So overall, I think it was a good game played by her, right? She developed her opening principles. She got all my threats. She had this good center control while I had this passive bishop, so it wasn't so good for me. And then I really got the equalizer with this d5 move. Because if she had played d5, then take, knight, bishop. I mean, she can develop her bishop, maybe put pressure on this square, and I probably would have had to fight for the center. So by giving this isolated pawn and some of these unnecessary moves, I was really able to dig it out of her. So even in this case, d5, knight here, this moment was interesting because now white has a sequence of moves that can get him a pawn, at least. And this sequence of moves is take. Now I can't just take the knight because the bishop's hanging, so black has to take this way, threatening the queen. And now white can play knight takes pawn. After knight takes pawn, the knight is threatening the queen, right? So, either you take the queen and white takes the queen, or it's king takes and rook takes, right? So either way now, white would be up a pawn. Take, threatening the rook, takes, right? So either way, white would be up a rook. So that was a miss for me. Pawn, takes, and now this maybe wasn't the best move, right? And especially because she had her opportunity here with knight takes. So up to here, she was playing okay with this pawn. And then this d6 was a little bit rushy, especially because the consequences weren't taken well with. So in this sequence, she lost a bishop, and really the game pretty much. Because before that, she was playing really well, controlling the center, getting those opening principles down. But that's what allowed me to win. So it was just a mistake that really cost the fatal blow. Made me a little bit nervous, but I guess I'm okay. Well, thank you for watching. Hopefully